you just made Dark Skies. You're doing this party, right? Around its release, its premiere.
Yep.
And what happens? Somebody enters the scene.
Well, I mean, the only thing you need to know is that Dark Skies was an NBC series about an alien invasion set in the 1960s.
My name is John Lowengarth. I'm recording this because we may not live through the night. They're here, they're hostile, and powerful people don't want you to know. History as we know it is a lie.
So it was kind of at the time, kind of a home run to have a network say, we're going to give you $40 million to make a bunch of subversive television because the pilot said JFK was killed because he was going to tell the truth about UFOs. So we're celebrating, right? We're on the air. It's a cool thing. There's buses driving around LA with our Dark Skies logo on it. And it's cool. It's a great thing. So we say, let's have a party. And we have it at my house, the same place I live today. All right. And there's 200 people in the backyard, which is a lot of people. It's a nice party. But Brent and I, we know every single one of them because we're running the show. And these are network executives, studio executives, casting crew.
Yes. And we had a way to identify everybody because we did a party favor where when you'd come in, we took a little Polaroid photo of you and we turned it into a Majestic badge. Because in our show, it was about Majestic 12, right? The main characters were in Majestic 12. So everyone was walking around with a Majestic badge with their name and their photo on it, which is an important part of the story.
Except for one guy. During the party, before the show has aired. So remember, nobody has seen this show. Other than the production people, but it's not aired, and it's going to air that night. And we have TVs all over the place so that everybody can watch it. And one of our producers comes up to me and says, "Hey, there's a guy, you got to meet this guy." And this guy introduces himself as JC, and he says he just wanted to meet me to congratulate me on a successful show, and says, "You guys got a lot right." And he basically is saying that he has seen the pilot. All right. And I kind of challenged him. I said, well, if you've seen the pilot, what happens after that crop circle scene? And the guy goes, oh, yeah, that was great. They go back to the Majestic headquarters. They do that autopsy thing and they pull the ganglion out of the guy's head. And I'm looking at him going, well, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And it was very unnerving. And the baton gets tossed to Brent here because I basically had 200 people in my backyard. I got people saying, where are the appetizers, right? And I've got people saying, the network guy wants to talk to you and say something. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on. I don't know this guy. And I say, look, I don't know you. I don't know exactly why you're here. You were not invited. You should leave. Mm-hmm. And then I left and thought he'd escort himself out of the party. I had other things to do, but that's not what happened.
Cut to Brent. This is my first TV series. So as Bryce said, huge. It's on NBC. It's the lead of their trilogy night. I'm at a premiere party with all of these like big wigs in Hollywood. But I've seen the pilot at this point 100 times, right? Through all the editing and the post-production. So I'm less interested in watching it on the monitors with everybody. About halfway through, I lose interest and I'm thinking, I just want to find a place where I can like go out into the backyard and look at everyone and watch them watching it. So I go out by myself and I'm just standing out there and I hear a rustle in the bushes behind me. And I kind of turn around and some guy walks out and he does not have a Majestic badge.
Right.
And so I'm already thinking, I don't know who this guy is. And he's like, hey, Brent, how's it going? And I'm like, and I don't know his name. And I'm thinking, is this like an NBC like marketing executive or something? But he knows me. I go, it's going pretty good. He goes, yeah, you guys got a lot right. Now, sidebar, in that moment, what that meant to me was I had a whole previous disclosure experience when I was 18 with a guy who was a family friend that was in the Reagan administration. We can go into that later. But I took some of those ideas. I told Bryce over a lunch about them, which is what got us making Dark Skies. So there was some truth in the show. And this guy is suddenly standing there saying, you got a lot right. And then he says, you must have talked to someone. And I felt my whole stomach cinch up.
Cue the eerie music.
And right in that moment, I thought, I'm going to jail. Remember, I'm just like, I'm what, 40, 35? I don't know. I'm like mid-30s. first TV show, and I'm thinking, here I am on the precipice of greatness. And there's because the guy looks like a cross between a frat guy and, a typical FBI agent, kind of clean cut, round 30. He's got a white press shirt, navy blue blazer.
So what you're saying, other than me being above 30, like me, looks like
You're
me.
too old to be a
Got the jacket and the shirt, the collar.
So here's this guy, and I'm like, I'm seeing my whole life flash before my eyes. And he goes, but you also got a lot wrong, and that's why I'm here. And I'm like, I'm thinking, like, who is this guy? And so we start to talk, and he lays out that he is from the Office of Naval Intelligence, and they would like to talk to us about a deal where we could get access, we could get information that we could then help them with their slow drip disclosure program.
And just to complete, now that this two stories kind of intertwine here, because the show is now on by the time Brent is talking to him at the barbecue, and I'm going back in the house I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going back in, and I look over, and there's this guy I threw out of the party an hour ago, and he's talking to Brent, and I'm thinking, that's not right. So now I joined this story, and now you got Brent, me, and the guy who said he's from the Office of Naval Intelligence. And by the way, we are getting to sound, light, and frequency.
Yes. So there I am. I'm talking to this guy, and my wife comes up, and she's looking for me. Bryce sees this guy. Suddenly, my wife is there. So there's all these people talking, and the guy says, yeah, so anyway, we'd like to make a deal with you. Here's my card, and he gives me the card, and all it says is J.C. with a 310 number on it. Nothing else. Give me a call, and we can talk about it. And I kind of say, okay, fine. And he kind of looks at me, and his demeanor up until this point had been like, fairly genial. And
probably, by the way, because the guy that tried to throw him out of the party is
Bryce
now looking at him. So,
So now he gets a little bit more serious, and he says, I can see you're not taking this seriously. And he looks at my wife, and he goes, ma'am, can I borrow a piece of paper and a pencil? She kind of like goes into her purse, and she pulls out a piece of paper, she takes an old ATM deposit envelope, right? You have to put your checks in there. She rips off the triangular fold down. She gives him that and a pen, and he takes it in front of all of us, and he just starts writing something on a piece of paper, about 30 seconds. And then he folds it up, and he goes, here you go. Do me a favor. Put this in a safety deposit box for about 10 to 15 years. And if we don't make a deal, then you'll know I was for real. So I take it from him, and I kind of look at it, and I go, and it's an incomprehensible like formula thing. And I go, what is this? And he goes, sound, light, and frequency, secrets of the universe. Good night, folks. And he turns around and walks out.
Whoa. Is it a math formula?
Not particularly. It's got some symbology in it, and we're
weird.
actually looking into it right now. I'd love to come back on your show someday and show it to you and explain what
I want to
we're
see
finding
this
out.
thing.
Yeah.
You should use AI and try to decode it.
We have
We're
done
doing
a
that, and
lot of different things. We have a lot of people write. Someone wrote a 22-page analysis of it.
Oh my God.
I know. So it's weird, and we can talk about that later, but I wanted to at least give you the understanding of what sound, light, and frequency meant, right? Why we named the podcast this, because this is what kicked off decades of high strangeness, starting with that show. Now, I'm an experiencer, so my high strangeness started going all the way back till I was a child, but it all kind of culminated in Dark Skies and brought Bryce into this crazy experience that went on for a while, because that was not the only time we talked to JC.
So what happened next?
Well, actually, it's almost important to talk about what happened before. A year before that event, we were shooting the Dark Skies pilot. Okay. And by the way, we're not here to talk about a 30-year-old show, other than it exists in a framework.
Well, everybody should watch it because it's a really great
fun.
show.
It is fun, but it exists
and it's predictive, I think, of a lot of things that seem to really dovetail with real whistleblower accounts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And as we've been sort of, I guess we're using the Sound, Light, and Frequency podcast as a bit of an investigative, active investigation to try to see if we tell our story, will other people tell us their stories? And that's actually starting to work. Anyway, things we had forgotten almost were this one. A year before, when we're shooting the pilot, I get a postcard to my home address, and it's got a picture on the front cover, which, by the way, you should put that on your show if you want.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of a book, I believe from 1960, called Flying Eyes. And it's these eyes flying in the sky looking at whatever. And I turn it over to read the postcard, and it's been typed on an old-style manual typewriter with a very black ribbon, and it's all in caps, all right? And it's not like Tom Hanks used in, Band of Brothers and all that kind of old thing. And instead of it being a sentence that goes across all in caps, it's 4 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, stacked on top of each other. And it says in all caps in dark black, "We are watching you."
Whoa.
So that's pretty. So so Brent, of course, was thinking about his interaction with this guy that was the Secretary of Energy during the Reagan administration and wondering about that. I'm thinking about these postcards that we got. So this guy didn't come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Did not come out of nowhere.
What do you think put you on the radar of any of these people? Do you think had you already taken with Spielberg?
No, that came after.
After.
But I had done a couple of UFO things. And of course, Brent and I were at that moment doing a very highly anticipated pilot. People were talking about it because of the way we sold it was interesting. But that's another story. But prior to that, I had written the first Sci-Fi Channel original film, and it was called Official Denial, and it was highly ufological. I mean, it had everything from Majestic 12 to abductions to crash wreckage and organic spaceships and all this stuff in it. So put that on the radar. I'd even written UFOs and Men in Black into the Lois and Clark series when I worked there. So I was sort of a UFO guy in making. And then we got Dark Skies. So maybe that's what put us on the radar.
On the radar of the powers that
be. Somebody.
Right. Well, so that's Bryce. Bryce was doing a lot of work in this area. I had literally done no work in this area. But again, I should bring you up to speed on this when I got disclosed to, because obviously it was relevant to somebody. And it has come full circle now because Dave Grush has been asking me about this person.
And so he should tell you the story. And I just want to give you one quick setup. Brent and I did not know each other. His wife was my assistant on a show called Mantis that I was producing. And she, I had all these UFO books in the office. And she said, "You should meet my husband." So we went out to lunch, and he told me the story that he's going to tell you right now. And when I heard it, I went, I don't even know who this guy is. I don't even know if this story is true, but it's a hell of a story, and I'd like to work with him. And that became our origin, if you will.
Yes, that was our meet cute.
That was our meet cute. Yeah. And how cute it is, but we did meet.
So here's the story.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to thank one of today's sponsors, Z-Biotics. I've been using their pre-alcohol product for years, and when the opportunity came up to work with them, I jumped at it because it's one of the few things I actually drink before a night out with friends when it's time to celebrate a special event. And that little decision I make before I go out changes everything. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to specifically tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, of course drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I have Z-Biotics before my first drink of the night, and I wake up feeling totally normal the next morning. As you'll know, if you're older than, say, the age of 28 or 29 is not usual. So go to zbiotics.com/Jesse to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Jesse at checkout. Z-Biotics is also backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Jesse and use the code Jesse at checkout for 15% off.